Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and I'm excited about this video. It is about clarifying the statement, all parts are welcome, and also the statement of no bad parts. So I want to highlight both how these statements, this experience, this understanding of no bad parts and all parts welcome is so transformative and why. And also how these statements can often be misunderstood and even misused. Both are so important. So I say all parts are welcome every time I lead the weekly IFS community. Dick Schwartz, the founder of Internal Family Systems, his most recent book is called No Bad Parts. And these understandings are so refreshing, so transformative for so many of us because we have often lived our lives on this other side of the pendulum, blended with manager parts who point a finger of shame, judgment, badness, a need to manage and control other parts of us that are seen as problematic, bad, extreme. Often our exiles and our firefighters, sometimes other managers as well. But even a lot of mental health, self-help modalities are geared toward that, right? So we're kind of uplifting the managers and trying to control, suppress, force these problematic parts into changing. And so when we realize that that's actually not effective, seeing them as bad is not effective, that when we can see them as having a good intention, that they always have a protective intention, they always have a secret history that helps them make sense. And that when we get curious about that and we see it more clearly, we no longer want to suppress them, we want to help them, right? So when we no longer see them as bad, we see them as good, we welcome them to tell their story. That's how the healing happens. So it's so important and refreshing to have that understanding. But what ends up happening is that sometimes people take that part of the equation and they begin to negate the other side. So this is what parts inside of us do. They're black and white. They're either or thinking. But our capital S self has this very nuanced understanding of both and or all and, because there can be more than two perspectives, right? There can be lots of different perspectives, and the self can understand and hold them all at once. So when I realized that this statement can be misunderstood was a member, one of the members of my weekly group was talking to me about basically another person's protective parts acting out and harming them. And then they said, but, I have to, basically, I have to accept it because all parts are welcome. And I thought, oh, this is a kind of a misunderstanding of what that means. So I really want to clarify this. Often when people come to me, and this happens a lot in IFS, you might have experienced this in your own system. When parts of you hear this statement that there are no bad parts, that all parts are welcome, some parts they may resist it and protest and say, no, that inner critic inside is really hurting us, is really harming parts of us. And that is not good. That is bad, right? And in my experience, the self would never invalidate that. The self would say, you are absolutely right. And the distinction is this. I remember hearing Tony Herbine Blank say this, and it just so helped my system. At the same time, protective parts have a positive intention and a negative impact. And both of these need to be recognized simultaneously. If we recognize one and not the other, or vice versa, it's problematic. If we're just looking at it as bad, 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 and that the bad impact, the bad behavior, the extreme behavior of the part means that it has bad intention, that it's innately bad, that's going to be problematic. But likewise, if we say it has good intention and therefore its behavior is okay, that's a type of spiritual bypass. It's also not recognizing reality. And so that's why our parts will step up and protest. And the self says, yes, you are absolutely right. The negative impact of that inner critic, addictive part, self-harming part, suicidal part, raging part, perfectionist part, performing part, like the extreme nature means that they're burdened, means that they are having a negative impact on other people or on ourselves, other parts of us or our bodies. And so the self fully acknowledges that and then says, however, your strategy, because usually it's a managing part that's saying this, your strategy of judging and shaming and trying to suppress and control and change them, how is it working for you? It's likely not working. So what if I propose a different strategy where I approach these extreme parts with open, non-judgment curiosity so that I can get to the roots and I can help heal what they protect. And then they don't have to be so extreme anymore. So the goal of these polarized managers that are saying you're bad and the self is the same, right? It's to help these parts relax ultimately. They just have a different strategy. So, but their acknowledgement that the extreme part is having negative impact is accurate. It is true. Okay, so there are no bad parts ultimately because they're not innately bad. They don't have bad intention, but there are bad behaviors. There are extreme harmful impact. Okay. The other piece of this is the understanding that our parts always have good intention for us and ultimately for maybe certain parts of us or us as a whole. Our protective parts are trying to preserve our safety, our lives, our well-being, keep us away from suffering, from punishment, rejection, etc. So our protective parts have protective intention for us, but they do not have protective intention for other people. So likewise, when I see another person's in front of me, I see their parts and I can recognize, ooh, they have really extreme protectors. I can have the knowledge that they make sense. There's trauma and vulnerability underneath. These parts are protecting them, but they're not necessarily protecting me. So they may in very real ways be harming me, hurting me. And a self-led system doesn't say, oh, just do whatever you want to me because I understand why you're doing it. Again, there's a both and of I love you, I understand you, and I'm going to take my system away from you. Unfortunately, I can't be in relationship with you. I can't be physically close to you because your protective parts are acting out in harmful ways toward my parts or toward my body, and it's not safe. So we don't have to demonize them and say that they are innately bad or evil in order to take ourselves away and to accurately acknowledge that what they're doing is harmful. And so I think it's so important to have both of these pieces at the same time. Like I was saying, one without the other is not the full picture. It's not accurate. So it's really important to understand that the self is not a doormat. The self has very healthy boundary. It doesn't need to take things personally because it understands it's about the other person. It knows that it can't control the other person. It can only control us and, move us away from the other person. It may need to grieve the fact that the other person can't give us what we need. But the self is not a doormat. That would be other parts, likely fawning parts, caretaking parts that might be a doormat. But I think, yeah, it's so important. So if you have anything else that you want to say about this, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. If you have questions about it, let me know. If you resonate with what I'm saying, if it's helpful to your system to clarify that, let me know that too. I would love to hear.